Fun dad fact number 2. If a dad joke doesn't land, taking the time to explain it makes it exponentially more hilarious. Now, what I mean by that is, if the joke doesn't land, take the time to explain it, and it will be far more hilarious than it was before. I'm Matt Howes, and this is Shits and Giggles, a podcast for dads. Well, hello again there, winners. Welcome back to Shits and Giggles, episode 9. The Force Awakens, or the Force inside my daughter awakens when she has massive poops, like she does on a regular basis. Welcome back, and I just want to give you a big hearty thank you from me for listening. We've gotten a lot of good feedback, a lot of good downloads lately. Lots of people sending in questions and talking to me, and it makes me feel like we're doing something good here. So I want to make sure that I don't go on without thanking the listeners, you, the listener. I do want to point out that in my ever-changing way of trying to make sure that we have excellent audio quality, I have adjusted my setup so the vocals may seem a different volume than before, but this will be the standard from now on. It should be much more crisp and much more clear, and we should be good to go until I decide to change it again, as I do on a pretty regular basis. Anyway, this weekend was Labor Day. A wonderful time to take a celebratory weekend to celebrate labor. And, oh, you know what? Fun fact there, my wife was in labor for 38 hours. So I guess we took the weekend to relax because of her extended labor, and I think that's appropriate. So I was going to make an obligatory joke about the fact that people take a day off for Labor Day, and I do understand that it is for some other reason than that, but I'm now going to use it as a point out to my lovely and wonderful wife, Sarah, for going in 38 hours of labor, almost a full work week there, guys. A full work week of her being in labor. But I've spoken about that before. I wanted to tell you about our excursion this weekend. This weekend, we finally had the wherewithal to actually get out of the house and go for a full day trip. Like several hours, like early afternoon to evening before we went home to our great friend's house about a half hour, 45 minutes north of where we live. So, the car trip's fine. And actually, interestingly enough, I can talk about that for a minute. I think a lot of kids end up being pretty good in the car, but Penny has been phenomenal in the car. She is in fact, that's some of the almost can't be bothered moments for her is when she's in the car. So, they always say that the joke is the dad driving around at nighttime in circles just to make sure his kid's asleep. And it's real. Well, it could be. We haven't had to do that yet. She's been sleeping fairly well through the night. But she was amazing there and back. Very, very little fuss, very little muss. She was doing great. One thing that this weekend did remind me of, we were going to that barbecue, and it reminded me how expensive barbecues are. Now, we spent probably like $100 on stuff for this thing, and we had a blast, but I forgot exactly how expensive things like this can be because we have been homebodies since this lovely daughter of mine was born. And this has been like Clifford's Day Out, you know what I mean? That's a dated reference, but I'm going to leave it in there for those hardcore people who know what I'm talking about. And, we had a really good time. Did a little bit of shopping, bought a couple beers for the bros, and got some hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff. General barbecue rabble-rousery items. But this was, we were stoked. And then maybe we overbought a little bit because we were excited to get out of the house and to hang out and return back to normal society for a little bit. But it was a great experience. We get to the house and we unload the car, and we haven't seen our good friends John and Lila. John, who, by the way, I'll shout out to again, gave me the idea for the name for this podcast. And Johnny, if you're listening, I really appreciate this name, but I don't appreciate the fact that most mediums don't let me advertise because the name of the podcast is Shits and Giggles. Love you, pal. Thanks for the idea. Still having a ball doing it. But we unload the car. We haven't seen our friends in a pretty long time. It ended up being about 8 people that we hadn't seen in a very good amount of time, all gathering together for a nice barbecue, and it was a ball and a half, and let me tell you. But it did, being a father in this situation, being a new parent is so much different than, even just having this little, she was calm the whole time. We had to feed her a few times, but she didn't have any meltdowns or anything. She didn't poop. But, it's different. I want people to know that, all of a sudden I'm in a situation where otherwise I would be purposefully irresponsible. I am now responsible for the life of my daughter. So everything is filtered through those rose-colored glasses. I'm having an excellent time just watching everybody have a good time. You know what I mean? But I'm not sitting there getting wasted like I used to. And we're just enjoying ourselves, sitting by the pool and relaxing. And, as you're a new parent, you should know as well as I do that sitting by anything and relaxing is a very foreign and very welcome experience. So I highly encourage, if you haven't done it in a while, to do it. And most people right now at this point, they're not taking their kids out. I mean, of course, with these anti-vax morons, there is the threat of bringing back long since eradicated diseases. And that is a very, very palpable threat. But it also is not going to keep us from trying to live our best lives. Now, right now, I'm not going to go to Disneyland anytime soon, but I am quite confident that my small group of friends have all been heavily vaccinated, as have I. So we don't really feel super weird about doing that. And, we do take her out to church. But, yeah, a lot of people are a little bit more tentative about taking their kid out at less than 2 months. And we were, and I'm going to talk about that for a little bit as well, but but it's also now she's a little less fragile now. We can start trying new things. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but what I want to point out is now I am the mature one in the group. You know what I mean? And it's not even like I'm sitting there judging. And I'm not, because I'm having a blast. We're all doing the things we used to do, but I'm just sitting there a little bit more reserved and with my daughter in my arms. But for some reason, it's like if you ever played Dungeons and Dragons, I have a +10 to maturity while I'm holding my child, and a +5 in general, just knowing that I have one. And it's a little strange, because the entire time, all my buddies were just sitting there being like, oh my God, it's so great. Oh, she looks so great. I can't believe that you guys are out. You're out and about, and it's so crazy that you don't mind people picking up. And by the way, we had issues with too much foreign contact. But again, now she's older. She's a bit more, and as every woman likes to be described, she's a bit more sturdy, as the doctors did it. So if you're ever in a fight with your wife and she's feeling insecure, make sure to tell her that she's sturdy. She's a very sturdy human being, because that's what the doctors described my daughter as, and she's a happy, happy baby. But we're not so tentative about letting people hold her anymore. We've mostly just sat inside and we've been hanging out watching TV and watching movies, and I've been going to work. Sarah has been taking Penny to her work. She goes in for a couple hours once a week just to get some things taken care of. And we're the routine of getting her out is not so daunting anymore. Of course, making the switch to from going out where you can just literally run out of the house to, did you pack enough diapers? Did you pack enough wipes? It's there, but it's the same as, cell phone, wallet, keys. What do I need to leave the house? What am I going to be, if I'm bereft of any of these items, what is going to ruin my day. And we're now at a point where it's pretty much point and click. The diaper bag's always full. It's not something we forget about because, goddamn, if we forgot it, it would be devastating. But, again, let's say we did. There's also many stores we can buy diapers at. And, you're never too far away from the items you need. And we're no longer living in that world of super overprotection. So we were letting Johnny was holding her, and our friend Sam, everyone was holding her, and had a blast. Of course, everybody, the common phrase you'll hear, new parents out there, is when you have a kid and you bring them around your friends or family or anyone who hasn't had a child yet, you're going to hear this phrase from the women from the women who are very excited and want to have their kids, or just generally want to make the joke that everybody makes. Oh, my ovaries are swelling because I want to have a kid right now. I forget what the actual term is, but it's like, oh, my ovaries, I can feel them because we need to have a kid. And then, of course, every dad, or every boyfriend, husband in the room will look at you being like, oh, thanks for bringing your kid around. But it was surprising, actually, that we had some genuinely good conversations with our friends who were like, okay, this is a baby who's chilling, having a good time. In fact, one of our friends has an adult kid. I guess what I'll dignify as an adult kid, because this kid is mature far beyond his years, and he is in his 12, 13 years old, and he's a super I hang out with the adults just fine kind of kid. And we're all normal guys. We're not doing anything crazy. We're not doing ripping bong shots, or I haven't gone out binge drinking in years, so I don't know. But no keg stands are happening. It's a very fun, normal barbecue situation. But yeah, it's just, I had good talks with her about her son, just in general, now being part of the parental club. And moms and dads out there, new parents, you are now part of the parental society. It's a new thing that you can make small talk about wherever you go. In fact, if you see someone with a kid or a baby, it's now socially acceptable for you to walk up and discuss your different parenting styles unsolicited. Very, very unsolicited. You'd be like, oh, hey, oh, that's fine. You got that thing? Oh, I do this thing, but here we are. But having conversations about your kids, if you want to, is now something you can do, and it's a new thing to engage. A little extra small talk, if you will, though I would say it's big talk instead of small talk. It's probably the one thing that dominates my conversational affects when I do bring it up, but it's definitely something that I enjoy talking about, and I'm glad I finally got to talk to a close friend who has kids, who's had a kid, but a little bit older. But we had a good time chit-chatting about just different stuff about kids. But one of our friends was like, well, I think my wife really wants to have a baby now, and I don't know if I'm ready, and I don't know how, I'm afraid to hold your baby because I'm afraid I'm going to screw something. And this is a very common thing now that I've come across. And it's, people are afraid to screw up. They're afraid to make a mistake. And as anyone who has kids or anyone who has been a kid realizes, we learn from our mistakes. We try to do better, than the generation before us. But one of my friend Chris was genuinely, we have some very deep conversations about this because it seems like he really wants to have a kid, but he's afraid that he'll somehow, drop him or blah, blah, blah. The genuine concerns that people do have on a regular basis. It's not unheard of to have these questions. But it is something that it's as a parent, I never thought I would have the perspective of being like, hey, kid, you'll be all right. I've mentioned before that babies are God's perfect healing machine. I can hurt my head, my ankle or something, and I'll be out. I'll be out for the count. And these kids can fall downstairs and keep on going. Not that Penny has, but it's hard to explain to someone who doesn't realize the resilience of a new baby that they aren't as right away. They're very fragile, and once they start developing their personality, we're not even at 2 months, and she's very sturdy, as they like to say. So if anyone ever solicits advice for you about how first-time parenting tips, first off, tell them exactly what not only I have said 100 times, but what my nurses said to me in the hospital. There's no amount of classes that you could take. There's no amount of preparation that you could do. There's zero amount of baby proofing that you can finish that will actually prepare you for the moment that your child enters the world. There's nothing to be done besides just letting that wash over you and really just sitting and steeping in the fact that this is your life now. And hopefully this was something you wanted to do. And hopefully this was the plan. But if it wasn't, you have to live in your new normal. But there's also nothing you can do. There's nothing that will prepare you for when your kid comes into this world. And there's no amount you could wrap your whole house in bubble tape and your kid will find a way to hurt themselves. And all you can do is react. And I struggle with calling it reactionary parenting, but it's the opposite of helicopter parenting. I don't think that smothering your kid and protecting them from the world is the best really way to go about it, but I definitely think that cuts and bruises. Some of the most gifted people in the world have had some pretty traumatic pasts. Not that I'm saying force your kid into a traumatic experience or anything like that, but don't protect them from life or they'll never learn how to live it. I believe that's the Ferris Bueller outlook on how things work. I was talking, this is another thing when Chris was talking about when he wanted to have kids, he says, I might be ready in the next 4 years or so. And I'm like, yeah. And that's fine. And for however old you want to be when you have kids, it's, that's your prerogative. But the way I looked at it was I wanted to have kids for a long time. I've said that 100 times in this project. I'm so lucky to have my lovely daughter and my best friend and wife, Sarah. And we're doing this journey together. At 32, I have my kid. I think about how old am I going to be at their high school graduation. So I'm like, okay, at 18, I'll be 50 years old. And then the other thing, and I was talking, my boss and I was actually having this similar conversation. He's getting older, doesn't want to have any more kids. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe if it were to happen. So I'd be 60 at my kid's high school graduation. And now if I think about how long I waited to have kids, so if I waited till 32, I would be 64. You know what I mean? So my rule is I want to experience my grandkids. I don't want to be like 100 years old when I have them. So I was telling him, I'm like, you kind of got to think about stuff like that. Life doesn't stop. So where you decide to plug in your various milestones does have a difference and a ripple effect on how the rest of the life's going to turn out. So I do say, and realistically, the younger you are, the more able you are to tackle anything that comes up with your kid, because it is already, I'm pretty sure by the end of the year, I'm going to be ripped. My arms lifting this kid and carrying around all this like nonsense when I leave the house, I'm going to be jacked. I'm going to have to get some new tattoos because, I'm going to stretch these ones out with all my new muscle definition. But yeah. And so this, and you know what? This is the thing. All these topics came up at this barbecue I had where conversations used to be dominated by nothing. Like, how was your weekend? And what are we up to? And let's talk about just nothing. Now we're talking about hard-hitting, normal issues about parenthood. And I'm not batting an eye at it because I'm literally living it. It's my breath every day, parenthood. So it has become as routine to me as how was your weekend? Like, I have things queued up, ready to go for what did you do this weekend? Well, let me tell you, this is what we did with the kid, blah, 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 blah. And those are the conversations you're going to have. And welcome to parenthood. It should oversaturate your life. Parenthood should be very, very, very dominant in the conversation when you talk about what's going on, because it is impossible to ignore. And, some people are able to tune it out. I'd say if you're a good parent, that 90% of your day or more, you're thinking about your kid, and it's again, new conversation starters, new small talk, all kinds of fun stuff like that, and at the end of this barbecue where I gingerly left at like 7:30 when I would normally stay until, we're up till 2, we're partying. And everyone, we're all getting older. So everyone's really throwing in the towel early now. But it's so weird that I'm like, well, I have to go home because instead, in an old situation where I could just head hits the pillow, I'm out. Now we got to make sure bath time's done. We got to make sure diapers are changed, that she's fed, that we're all happy, and that we usually, going home, we still have another 45 minutes to an hour of work. So it's not, that's another thing that people don't realize. Your day, that just because our experience together has ended, the rest of our day is still happening. We still have a lot. I used to be able to go home and knock out. And now it's go home, and if as much as I'd love to just hit the pillow and go, there's a lot of responsibility, And of course, it's one of those things that you probably tend not to think about, that most people who bring their kids around, they have a lot more to do when they get home. Think about that when you're like, why can't you stay at this party for another couple hours? Which, of course, none of my friends were worried about. All they were doing was loving my daughter. I literally know that there's at least 2 people at that barbecue who will be having kids very soon because of seeing Penny. And it's great. And, but those are things you have to think about. It's a new topic I've learned about. And I just wanted to bring to light the fact that barbecues are expensive, and being a parent is amazing in every situation so far. That's about I just wanted to go over my Labor Day weekend with you all. I'm going to bring back my newest popular segment here, so hold on to your hats. Welcome back to the next episode of Good News, Dad News. Today's article we're talking about discusses the good news part of Good News, Dad News. I recently came across an article that was very touching to me. It's from, this one I'm reading is from Good Morning America. And it's about a daughter who loses 55 pounds so she's able to donate a kidney to her, quote, superhero father. I only said quote because it's in quotes, not because I don't believe he's a superhero. But after being told she was too overweight to donate a life-saving kidney to her father, a Georgia woman lost more than 55 pounds in order to save the life of her superhero dad. So Don Muhammad of Atlanta is a superstar. If you think about it, a lot of people who are happy, when it's family, I'm happy to donate a kidney to any family member. If I had to, if they were a match for me, I'd be happy to do it. But now you're talking, you're overweight, you need to lose a shit ton of weight, and it's a limited time frame. So she really had to commit. She really had to put her mind to it. And I am blown away by the dedication this person has, because it's hard. I mean, overweight is different. Clinically overweight, sometimes you're still okay with like body type and everything. But having a problem with eating or eating too much or being just heavy at an older age, it's hard to lose weight. So this woman had to literally lose 55 pounds and in order to donate a kid, to become healthy enough to save her father's life. And she did it. And I'm sure it was really, really difficult for her, but she did it. She is a superstar. If you like, she calls her father a superhero. I say she is one. In 2016, her father was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney failure at the age of 71. A lot of people always say you don't trade up with organs. The kid should never give something to their father, but that's a personal decision. It's someone. No one can decide when they've lived a good life. It's fine. No, you want people to. I want to stay around as long as humanly possible. I don't want to have anybody else die because of it. But that's just a story. And because he's put on the donor list, and they're like, you're not getting a kidney, guy. Sorry. You're at the very far down because of your age and because of the severity of your condition. And that's just the way our medical system works. And, think of that what you will. But anyone can donate a kidney, by the way. You can feel free to scroll down the list and get your type taken for someone. And I've heard that there's been anonymous kidney donations. Just someone just generously gave their kidney up. But, this person donated a kidney to save their father's life because that's how impactful their father was on them. It's have a part of me so you can continue. So this is a heartening thing, a very heartening thing, part of society. this is someone saving a life of a family member with literally taking something from them to do it. And it is just makes me look at society like, hey, we're not all, totally fucked right now. And that's, I wanted to bring that to light. It's, you can look it up on Good Morning America is the article I read it on. Moving on to my final area of this episode, as usual, we'll talk about where Penny is at developmentally. And as I say, we do have these episodes rather frequently, so the difference in her development is oftentimes unnoticeable to the casual listener, but I do take notes about things. So here's a few things that I have to say about that. It's short and sweet today. First off, I 100% believe that my daughter ruptured my eardrum. I had an ear infection. The doctor said, have you been swimming lately? It looked like swimmer's ear. I always clean my ears after a shower. But she screamed so loud one night, and actually a few times in the same day, where I could hear it echoing in my ear so badly, and then poof, I have an ear infection. They said my ear looked dull. And I said, don't insult my ear. It's doing the best it can. But I wonder, have any of your kids ever ruptured your eardrums? They say a child's cry is an incredibly high decibel level. It's something that can be heard from miles away for some people. And, well, at least that's how it feels when she's screaming in your ear. Feel free to send me a message or post it on our Facebook page if your kid has ever ruptured your eardrum with their adorably piercing cries. And then one last thing, I've talked about her smiling, I've talked about her recognizing me, but the most adorable thing I see now is I usually give my wife an extra half hour, 45 with her in the morning so I can get a couple extra minutes of sleep. And when I get up and I meet them in the changing room or when they're sitting in the recliner in the living room, when Penny sees me, she lights up like a Christmas tree. Like, she's not just recognizing people, she's recognizing me, and I get this big toothless smile. And if you've ever seen the pictures of what if babies had teeth, look it up. I believe I shared it on the Facebook page. It's disturbing, but this big toothless smile where it just slowly, you see her look at me, and then her mouth opens wide and wide, and she's so happy, and I'm like, and there's nothing I can do about it. So that's where we're at with her developmentally. I will leave you this week, as I will every week, with my world-famous words of wisdom. My kid is better than your kid, and vaccinate your kids or keep them the hell away from mine. I'm Matt Howes, and this has been Shits and Giggles, a podcast for dads. You've just listened to one dad's perspective on parenting. This show is not intended to be taken as an authority on how to raise your child. Did you enjoy the show? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at shitsandgigs42. Leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, or email us at shitsandgigs42@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.